we're heading out the door.
Dabney, please keep that door closed so we can... Actually, I think one of the most important things to bring up before I give a talk is that when everyone sees what I've done here, they're somewhat puzzled. But I've declared my place Center for Research and Development of Industrial Discards with the emphasis on aesthetics. I find great beauty in industrial shapes. For instance, to give you an example, like take this. To me, that's as great a piece of sculpture as you can find. And you know what it is? The cable goes through here and through here to keep the electricity arcing from one to the other. And when the engineer thinks in terms of function, he comes up with the most beautiful pieces of concepts. Here's a different one of the same thing. And the minute he starts thinking aesthetically, then he falls to pieces. So this whole thing started really way back in my childhood, when we came from Turkish Armenia to New Haven. My father said, "What an incredible, beautiful, rich, abundant country." He said, "But how much they waste, how much they waste." He said, "France could live on what the United States wastes." Do you know that? Do you know that that thing possessed me since I was 12? And in New Haven, everything I did with things I found, you know. And just think this wonderful stuff is thrown into the dump. Just because it's broken doesn't mean that it's lost its value. So I do. Another wonderful thing is that these pieces that are thrown into the dump come from past structures that are built. And even in those days, when the workmen got very little money, they put a lot of craftsmanship and quality into it. Today, everything is slipshod and horrible. This, for instance, again, these are very heavy things, and when the wind blows, these things tickle around. See, this wall is not quite finished because it's too busy now. But when I put the mortar in there, it'll be much more exciting, and I think it'll go better with this throne of mine.
Hold on just a second, Jirayr.
Since this wall that I want to show you, it's called the Feynman Wall of Passion. Let me show you how this came about. When we have our annual spring parties, I ask people, please don't bring any wrapped presents. But if you have something in the garage that you've been tripping over, didn't want to throw it away, and you want to give it to the Salvation Army or something, just bring it over and tie a string around it with your name so that I can thank you. And this whole wall is done with things that people have given me. And it's called the Feynman Wall of Passion because, you see, it was done in, let me see, I have to, 1994. It's a passion. And of course, here is Richard and Gwyneth Feynman, dedicated to Richard and Gwyneth Feynman. And I just find, because I'm an artist and I know something about interrelationship of line, color, pattern, textures. There's a relationship with color distribution, etc. And I also love I love shapes and crevices, etc. I found this tree right here, which looked very interesting, so I embellished it with some pot cleaner. Now, if you see other connotations here, it's not. That was not my intention. It's this was a root that was growing up with a couple of bumps under it, and I put a little pot cleaner here. Now this could easily be Groucho Marx with a mustache, with 2 eyes and a long nose. Someone gave me this love, and I put my wife's name under it. And oh gosh, look at this. This is terrible. Oh no. No, see? That's got to be like that. These are. That's. If you turn it down, your luck. This is for good luck.
Hey, hold on a second when the airplane goes over.
All of these are.
Okay, you want to say anything else about the wall?
One thing here. See what it says here? Partratsir, Partratsur. In Armenian, it's the Armenian Scout motto. In this country, is be prepared. Were you ever a Boy Scout? Yes, okay. In Armenia, it's Partratsir, Partratsur, which means elevate yourself and elevate others. And if you elevate yourself, you have a tendency to meet elevated people. Doesn't mean rich people, but people who are a little bit above the ordinary. So that is one of my things here. Now, when I was a Boy Scout, my scoutmaster once took me through a cave with a lot of other Boy Scouts, and God, I suddenly got this horrible feeling that the cave was going to break in and then crush me. And I started screaming and ran out of the cave. And since then, I think I've developed a certain claustrophobic feelings. So when I'm in a small shower like this, it bothers me. So let me show you what I've done. Here is my shower. Then that's my towel. Okay, that's Dabney's towel.
Okay, now start again, just a second. Then when I pan down to you, you can say, "Here's my shower."
Now here is my shower, and that's my towel. That's Dabney's towel. This is where we keep the soap and the shampoo. But I want to show you something else. This is fascinating. Now, when I turn this on, in 30 seconds, this thing can get so hot that you can't put your hand under it. All right. Just all I did was turn that on, right? Now, let me do it once more, just listen. Did you hear something? You know what that was? Now these are the things that drive me crazy about the United States. Look at this. This is a hot water heater. there's a little pilot in here, and when you put the hot water on, the pressure of the hot water lights up a big flame, and within 30 seconds I have hot water. And as long as I use hot water, I have it. And how often do you use hot water? 1 hour? 2 hours at the most? Why do you have to heat water for 22 hours or 23 hours? This is, every country in the world uses this system. England, France, Mexico, this is a Japanese version. It's a little more expensive when you buy it than our most expensive hot water heaters, but very economical. Anyway, I also, I mean, very much. That film that you did was also dealt with that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you did a wonderful job on that. All right, now also, everything is in a period of influx. These are going to be double-story guest rooms overlooking the ocean and views. Now, this wall is finished, as you can see, and this was done 1995, and these rings are here because we have 5 of them. When we come back from a ride, or before we leave, we tie up the horses here and saddle them, go off, come back, tie them up again, curry them, and so on. So this is going to be an addition to our house. We're going to use it as an office on the other side. Those are going to be portholes, as you might have in the ship. That wall will look just like this one. All right, now this wall is done with, as you can see, sections of trees, and I decided that I'm going to do some photographs where I have limited edition photographs of some of my sculpture. And I once boasted that this vehicle helped me build that deck, and when it died, I made it into what I call collage sculpture. And I once boasted that if I would do a work of art where if I posed a nude in front of it, you wouldn't find the nude. Well, of course, Jennifer, who's so white, who poses for a lot of my drawings, she's so white that she stands out anyway. But I know this very beautiful Panamanian girl who's married to a Frenchman. By the way, they came all the way from France just for the party. And she said, "Oh, Jerry, I'll pose for you. I'll blend in much better than Jennifer." So if I put her in some twisted positions, that chocolate color of hers, you can't find it. You look at it, she's camouflaged, or she's lost in the excitement that's going on. I used her once where I called it tres X. I had her stand like this, nude, of course, and then stand on her hands with her legs apart, and then stand here this way with her back, and then I stood here as the artist and took a photograph of the whole thing. And this friend of mine with a computer could do that in such a way that it looked as if it was one picture, even though there were four pictures. I guess you can do that with a computer. Okay, now here is by the way, this was given to me at this party. I understand they shot bullets through this thing. And if you hook this up to a light, there's a light in there, and it's just beautiful at night. And these are some excitement with beer cans. All right, now this is a deck where my wife and I sleep every night, and we do breathing exercises, and we also put on a skit during our spring party where it becomes a stage. Now this patio was all dirt at one time, and we used to have a fire in the middle. As time went on, I developed it, made it into a big patio. And I started with the big squares with the names and births and children of all my relatives. And when I ran out of relatives, I started, and in between, all the names of my animals, my horses, my goats, and so on. And then when I ran out of relatives, I started putting famous sayings by famous people. Now, for instance, Mies van der Rohe, Mies van der Rohe, see what he says, less is more. Well, in my haste to do it quickly because the cement was drying, please look at this a minute. In my haste, because the cement was drying, I misspelled less. I left one S out. Dabney said, "How brilliant, you only need one S." And then Buckminster Fuller said, "Do more with less." And then I tried to be smart, and I said, "Do something with something, do something, do."
Stand back, Jirayr, so I can. Okay.
And this one, I almost live by this creed. I don't know who quoted that one, but it says, a person who does things makes mistakes, but he doesn't make the biggest mistake doing nothing. And then I have one which says, you learn from your mistakes, not your achievements. And this is a statement by Michelangelo. Trifles make perfection, but perfection is no trifle. This is one I love here. This one is an Italian saying. In Italian it's Donna sans amore è come un fiore sans odore, which translated literally says, a woman without love is like a flower without an odor. And since odor has a derogatory connotation, I change it to fragrance.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Anyway, these are all, this is to prove to you how, see, my philosophy is that you can do incredibly beautiful things with something that's either thrown away or discarded, or you can get very, very little money. Now, this is just to make this power pole interesting. This is a brake drum. In a junkyard, I paid 20 cents for that. This is a high-tension insulator that comes from those big towers. I paid 25 cents for that. But these nails go way in here. Each one of them cost me 50 cents, and that hurts my feelings because that kind of breaks the... That flagpole was on the roof of the Broadway department stores. And this contractor had it on in front of his lawn. And I said, "What are you going to do with that?" He said, "Well, I'm going to put it up." I said, "My God, your neighbors will go crazy. Do you realize that's 42 feet long?" Never mind. I said, "If I do a portrait of your little boy, will you give it to me?" He said, "Okay, take it away." So that thing goes up there. And as I showed you, this one, this wall is dedicated to Yandy Schwartz. Can you hear me from there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was a phenomenal sculptor, painter, architect, inventor. He died about 7 years ago. And I dedicated this to him. He's a very close friend of mine. And I'll show you some of the interesting things that he could do. And then I had someone who lived on the ranch who learned the secret of Tiffany glass. You remember at the turn of the century, there was this incredible bunch of men who did these Victorian houses with this colored glass. And the secret died with them. And this fellow worked it out, and he gets tremendous prices, $1,500, $2,000 for a lamp that he does. And when this glass breaks, he saves me the broken pieces. And so I did all of this. This is some of it. So look at the beautiful colors here. Look at these. And then, of course, I put some of my expensive things in. Did you see what this is? Aluminum beer can. Anything that, I call it the shimmer pool because it's shiny, and I wanted it shiny in this case because it's next to the swimming pool.
Let's go look at the swimming pool.
Well, the pool is very not in condition, frankly.
Oh, is it?
I want to show you. I'm going to make a lot of changes. It's an old pool. It's 10 feet deep on one end and 3.5 on the other. 36 feet long, 18 feet wide. I also collect other artists' works. This one was done by Douglas Thoronson, who did it in exchange for a portrait I did of him. And I have another one of his when I did a portrait of his wife. Now, this is, I see one of the girls left her wreath. This is Zorthian painting, of course. Then we could have a cutting board, and we can cut cheese, and this for champagne. And this is when I was 84, I thought of this concept of having nymphs for every year of my life. And here are the 4 nymphs of that year. And as I said, the last one, since I'm 90, we had I had 10 nymphs. Now also, he dug all this up. I didn't. I don't know where he found out all this, but it's a discussion of Zorthian and Feynman, art versus science, and everything from here back has to do with our relationship. He has to explain some of this himself. But right here, you see what it says? Z plus 2 equals art. And here's Einstein and Benjamin Franklin with the kite. And all of these, he has some interpretation. Would you like to see more?
Oh, Jirayr.
This is. I have, yeah.
Have you?
Yes.
To where the dance area is?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's going to be a place where we're going to have poetry readings and piano concertos and so on. It's a repetition of what I've just said. Everything is done with discarded material. This staircase is all done with power poles and railroad ties and broken brick, etc. So we can go back in the house if you like.
Yeah, it's getting a little warm, isn't it?
Yeah, nice. We can wheel it anywhere we want and make a big fire. You see this? This year when about 11 o'clock, it started drizzling. It didn't rain, but it drizzled. So we made a big fire. God, just huge. And no one even knew it was drizzling. It was just wonderful. And we danced all the way around the fire. And we had 2 girls who did a fire dance. It was wonderful. By the way, we've enlarged the stage since last year. We've added 2 more parts to it, 3 curtains, so that wider audience can see the play. Nala. Shall we?
I'll just follow you.
Okay. By the way, this is the fire pit where we cook the pig underground. See that? And these are the hot rocks. We heat the rocks, and the heat from the rocks cook the pig. We cooked 2 pigs underground and 2 above ground. So we had a lot of, there were so many people here, we had to have much food. Wajubujubukubuchu. Wakakubukubukubukubukubuku. Kajubujukubujukubuku. Sweet thing.
Well, let's go inside and I'll show you what we got. We shot a half an hour.
Okay.
Okay, so you can just look right at me, Jirayr. What is it what do you think happiness is? What in your experience? What's that's all about?
Since we discussed it a few minutes before you set up this camera, I've been thinking if I could simplify it completely, I would say creativity. And doesn't mean that you have to be a fantastic artist or a musician or something. But in any field of endeavor, if you are able to be imaginative enough to do something a little different than someone else, I think that's a wonderful source of happiness. And I'm an artist by profession, you know that. Of course, I told you earlier that I think the purpose of life is living. And I think an artist usually knows how to live. Okay. I remember an experience I had maybe in the 60s, you know, when all the hippie movement was going on and so on. I was doing a series of paintings and drawings that had to do with that new movement that they were breaking away from the tradition and so on. I was doing a work of art which I called, well, God, there were so many things I did at that time, but this particular thing was stamp out reality.
Careful not to touch the mic.
What?
You don't want to touch the mic because I can.
Okay. Stamp out reality. Mm-hmm. And I was doing this fantastic, it was 5 foot 2.5 inches wide and 8 feet high. And I had this nude woman with a gun, all kinds of things. And she had a big hat on with all the buttons of those days. Kill for peace and this kind of thing, stamp out reality. Well, while I was working on this thing, I got so excited. I think I worked something like 18 hours at the... Finally I reached a point where I said, okay, now I'm finished. But believe it or not, instead of being tired, I was exhilarated. I mean, I could have gone on another 2 or 3 hours. What makes you keep doing that is something that, well, you're doing something that you really like. I think that's the greatest period of happiness that I can imagine. It's almost, frankly, I hate to make a comparison. When I finished with that, finally I said, okay, now I've done what I want. It was like having an orgasm without ejaculating. But I mean, it sounds crazy, but that to me is happiness. I have a piece of property down below that's worth millions of dollars, but they want to put 50 houses there. And I don't want 50 houses. Altadena doesn't want 50 houses. There it sits. Well, can you imagine what I can do with the money I can make there? But I just don't want 50 houses. I think it would violate my happiness.
So how does your art figure into your happiness?
Pardon me?
Your art.
My art?
Yeah, your expression of art. Is that the creativity?
Oh, God, of course. That's a great part of my source of happiness, of course. I think it would be for anyone who does something. You know, my philosophy is, if you don't chase the buck, but pursue diligently the things, not the thing, but the things you love to do most, suddenly the buck starts chasing you. I don't know of any time when I've gone to someone with a portfolio under my arm, said, I want to sell you something. Usually, I do something, people hear about it. Not something, some things. You have to do more than one thing. Some things, and they'll say, I want to buy it. I understand you do such and such. I want to buy it. Now, you're on the driver's seat. You can say, I don't know if I like that yellow shirt you're wearing. I mean, you know, not to be vulgar, but I think it's a loss of dignity to go to somebody and say, I want a job or something. You have to, from childhood, you have to develop something that you are so proud of, you're so excited about. The money will come by itself.
What do you think? What do you think about our society, where it seems like people decide on their what makes them happy is based on the stuff that they have, the possessions that they have, materialism?
Absolutely. You know, people, a lot of times people come to me and say, how are you, Jerry? And I say, well, I'm fine. I have no problems that a couple of $100,000 can't cure right this minute. But tomorrow it might be something else. And they say, oh, God, who the hell can't say that? A couple of $100,000 can certainly cure my problems. I said, you know, I know at least 50 people. I know, I'm socially known on this thing. That $200 million can't cure their problems. Money isn't the thing. You know, what good is money if you're not healthy, you're not alive, you're not happy, you're not, you know, the excitement of life is what I think happiness is.
So the people that are sort of influenced and pressured by advertising and all that sort of, they're being led astray, aren't they?
May I tell you a little story? I'm a horseman. I belong to 3 horse groups. And I'm very respected in there because I've been a member for 30-some-odd years, from 62 or 63 until the present time. And until now, I have pinned 32 horsemen over 6 feet tall because they don't know how to wrestle. I used to be Connecticut champion wrestler. So I'm very much respected. So these are very difficult things to get into. You have to be socially this and socially that. People, somebody has to sponsor you. So many people have to write for you. So when a new member comes in, is recommended, they try to go to the person who's well known and so on. And we were writing, please, this is very interesting. We were writing for at least, the distance was 3 hours away. And this person caught up with me, and we started having a conversation. After an hour, he said, Mr. Zorthian, you're a very interesting person. But he said, look at me. Look at me, he said. You know that I'm the symbol of the American dream I said, oh? He said, you know, I'm 54 years old. But when I was 50, I retired from IBM. I was one of their top executives. And I retired, and the reason I retired was because I had made enough money to feel secure enough to retire for the rest of my life, that I didn't have to work. Now, how many people do you know who can retire at age 50? He said, but Mr. Zorthian, he said, I am 54 years old now. The last 4 years of my life have been the most drug-rich, most boring, most unbelievably agonizing. I don't know what to do with myself. Some mornings I wake up, I have to pull a sheet over my face. I don't want to get out of bed because I don't know what I'm going to do that day. Isn't there something?
What's the lesson in that?
So I said, you know something? I retired at age 3. I don't know the meaning of the word work. When I do something, I don't call it work to begin with. I think when you were 27, 28, climbing up the ladder of IBM, and they said, John, stay this weekend because you have to get out those reports. You should have said, I'm sorry, sir, but my wife wants to take me to a concert or wants to take me to a very important cultural event or a museum or something. And your son, again, wanted to have you do something, do some sports or something. And you said, no, I'm sorry, I have to stay in the office all this weekend. I said, how in the hell can you develop interest at 50 if you haven't done something when you were a young man? The best ballet dancers start at age 6. The best football players started, the best baseball players started at 6. You cannot suddenly develop interest, excitement in your life after not having it for 50 years.
So people need to have a sense of freedom about expressing themselves and experiencing life so they can learn what makes them happy.
Well, they have to live a full life. God, in Italy, the man on the street that sweeps the sidewalks puts nickels and dimes into a piggy bank until there's enough money to take his wife to an opera. How can you have happiness without variety in your life? There's so much to it. It's just not. The life has to be exciting. And I would say, if you want to sum it all up, you have to live a creative life. You don't have to be an artist, but even if you're some menial thing, that if you can do it just a little differently than the next person, I think that makes you a very happy person.
So do you believe Joseph Campbell said that the essence of life is to seek your bliss? He said, seek your bliss. Look for the things that are going that's going to fulfill you and make you happy. Do you think that's what it's all about?
Right. Yes, you're very right.
Can you express that for me?
Well,
each individual has to find it within themselves, don't they?
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a genius. It's just the little things that would make, if you can do something a little bit different than the next guy. If you're just one of the run-of-the-mill persons, you get to a point where, oh God, what have I done? What have I accomplished? What have I... And the apathy that follows it is, you have to learn how to live, in my opinion. And there's a great secret in knowing how to live.
What is that secret?
Well,
You gotta, don't touch the mic, because if you touch the mic, then I hear it.
well, I think, as I told you, it's... remember, I think earlier I explained to you that most people live a very dull life. Get up in the morning, have a horrible breakfast. They go to work doing something they don't like doing. It's not their fault, but they have to do it to make a living. Come home, pick up a beer, a couple of beers, watch television, try to make love to their wives, which they can't do because they've been bored all day long. And they go on and doing this, and Saturdays they have enough money to make another television. I think television was one of the... All right, so they watch football all day. And when the wife comes and wants to do something exciting, like going to an art museum or a concert or something, darling, I like to, but I got to go to work Monday. I need Sunday to relax. And they do this until they retire. Used to be 65, now it's 55. And then they go to a retirement home. I don't think there's any chance for that person to be happy.
What do you think?
In any way.
What do you think? Passion. Is passion tied into the idea of happy? Do you have to be passionate about things in order to be creative and find that fulfillment?
You have to be interested. You have to be excited. You have to get away from the mundane. You know, I was a very, very well-known Boy Scout in the United States, in New Haven, Connecticut. I had 40 merit badges. I ran a camp for Boy Scouts for a year and a half, and the Scout motto, if you've ever been a Scout, is be prepared. Well, I was a Boy Scout when I was only 4 or 5, Cub Scout in Turkish Armenia. You know what our motto over there is? Not be prepared. Partratsir partratsur in Armenian, which means elevate yourself and help elevate others. And if you reach an elevated plateau, then you associate with only elevated people. Now, that's fascinating.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful.
All my life, believe it or not,
it's a wonderful motto.
Without trying, I get the most exciting people come up to my ranch. Richard Feynman was the most famous one, which, you know, he and I had a session where one Sunday he gave me a day of physics, and the following Sunday I gave him a day of art. And I knew him for 45 years. All my children grew up with him. I was best man at his wedding. And we had such a wonderful, stimulating life discussing art versus science. You get into discussions that are so vital and exciting. I don't know how to explain it.
Is that about being engaging in life instead of just being carried along?
Right.
Being actively pursuing participation in life instead of
Right.
just letting life carry you forward?
Right. Vitality, interest, variety. I don't know. Mention it. Complete excitement. But I think versatility is very important. I think that this age of specialization today has been a sort of a detriment in our society. The Renaissance artist, if he was he was a painter, he knew enough about architecture, knew about science, he knew enough so that he could bring all those other things into it. In other words, if you, for instance, if you're predominantly a painter, and you say, well, I've been doing painting, this specialization could kill you. I want to do something else. So you do a little sculpture. Then you come back to painting, and you bring something into your painting that you couldn't have if you didn't do sculpture. If you do some architecture, you bring something into your sculpture and painting that you couldn't have unless you did architecture. And if you did city planning or something, did a lot of things, they help each other, and it makes you grow. And that is, in my opinion, a secret of happiness.
What about love? What's the role of love and having people around you that love you and relationships with people you care about? How does that fit into the whole thing with happiness?
Well, I have I have a crazy thing that I'll tell you. I don't care how much you love people. You know that you're very, very, very fortunate if you have 5 or 6, maybe if you're lucky 7, 8 people who are so close to you that you jump in front of a lion to save them.
You touched the mic. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, say that again.
That I don't care how much you love them so much that you can jump in front of a lion to save them. Now, my feeling is that outside of those 5 or 7 people, I don't know whether I love people and can't stand humanity, or I love humanity and can't stand people. They do the damnedest things. It just, we have so much potential, no matter who you are, but people just don't do it.
Why do you think that is?
People don't do it.
Why do you think people don't do it? Is it because they don't understand how to be happy? There's no, you don't take any courses or anything in happiness, so it's hard to really zero in on
They're
what
not
it is?
curious. They have to develop curiosity. I don't know what happened. It starts when you're a very young person. Something has to ignite. Look at great men. Einstein. What made him do what he did? They tell me that until he was 3, he couldn't even, what was it, he couldn't read or something. But something excited him. Something excited him. Richard Feynman tells me the story about his father. He said, God, have you ever read some of his books?
Mm-hmm.
Surely you're joking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, that one chapter, Bill, but is it art? The entire chapter is devoted to me. Have you ever read that one? All right. Well, he talks about when he had a wagon and there was a ball in the middle of it. And when he pulled it, the ball went to the back. And he said, Daddy, why is it that the ball goes to the back when I... He said, son, the ball doesn't go to the back. It's that the ball is standing still, but the wagon is the one that's going forward. I mean, it made him curious why that happened from childhood. And that's how he became the greatest one. Do you realize that recently he was voted by all the scientists as the 7th greatest scientist in history, including Galileo and Newton and what have you. He stopped drinking long before I knew him. And whenever we would have a party, I remember one time everybody picked up their glasses and made a toast, and each one touched the other. He said, wow, how many clicks? What difference? Who the hell cares? How many clicks? He wanted to know how many people clicked each other. Now, that made him curious and interested. I don't know how to explain it. I think that has a hell of a lot to do with no matter what field you're in, to be curious.
To be open to possibilities?
Anyway, I think my source of happiness is complete variety of things to do. And also, I think it's important to keep your health. Be sure that, and the mind, I think, can do a lot of things that the body can't do. You have to say, well, my most important thing I have on my patio is, if you do things, you make mistakes. But you don't make the biggest mistake, doing nothing. Okay?
That makes a lot of sense.
That is a tremendous. So you say, oh Christ, I made a mistake. Oh Christ, I'm a failure. Oh God, No. Forget it. Next time, do something to correct it. It's just...
You learn from your mistakes. Huh?
Pardon me?
You learn from your mistakes.
Exactly. You learn from your mistakes. That's right. That's the next thing. In fact, I have another one said, you don't learn. I wrote this one. You learn from your mistakes, not your achievements.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I also sense that you're a man who likes to have fun.
Oh.
Since I've known you, I've seen it. Let me just check what we're doing on tape here. Yeah, we're getting close. What role does fun have? Is fun proceed having happiness, or or in seeking happiness, do you learn to have fun?
Tell me that again.
When you have fun, I mean, you just seem to exude joy, and when you do the things that you do, like the thing you do with the blessing of the animals, and your party that you have every year with all your friends gathered around.
Well, again, you're interested in, if you don't chase the buck, but pursue diligently the things you love to do most. I mean, I love animals. I'm not Catholic. It's an old tradition. It goes back to the 15th, 16th century Spain, where the farmer used to bring his cow or his bull to the padre, and if he blessed the bull would perform better, and so on. But now it's just become a custom, and I'm. If you want to know my religion, I'm an Armenian Orthodox Church. And by the way, we were the first Christians.
Touching the mic.
We were the first Christians in history. And
Go ahead.
so we go there, and we go with 3 horses, 7 or 8 goats, and chickens, and beautiful children, and beautiful women, and clothes, costumes, and so on. And the padre blesses us. Just because I love the whole idea of the fact that one day out of the year, the animal takes precedence over the human being, and we pay homage or honor to the animal.
So you find joy in
Oh, that's great joy.
and bringing people
Yeah,
together to
right.
share that experience.
I've always loved athletics. I mean, wrestling.